Welcome geometry students to the homework help video, page 610, numbers 2, 4, 5, 9 through 14, and 17, 18, and 20. Let's go ahead and get started. Identify a pair of congruent arcs. Are you ready? Please listen carefully. We learned a theorem that said when you have a chord congruent to a chord in the same circle, then their arcs are congruent. So there we go. It's that simple. We have two chords that are congruent, so their arcs are congruent. So arc PQ is congruent to arc RS. Moving on to number 4. Number 4 states find the value of x. Find the value of x. Now, if you'll look, we have a look in your books. The picture's a little blurry, I know, but if you'll look in your book, you'll see this chord right here is congruent to this chord right here. Okay? So if this red chord here, chord MN, is congruent to chord JK, then what that tells me is their arcs, their minor arcs, have to be congruent. So now I know arc JK has to be congruent to arc MN. Now think about it. If this arc here, MN, is congruent to this arc here, that means the central angle here has to be congruent to this central angle here. So I can definitely take x plus 5, which is one angle, and set it equal to the other angle, which is 50. And now bring the 5 over and make it a -5, and x excuse me, equals 45 degrees. All right, moving on to number 5. Kind of the same thing again here. Now please follow my reasoning. Do you see how this angle here is congruent to this angle here? They're both central angles. Well, that means whatever this angle is here, that's the same measurement as this arc out here. And whatever this angle is here, that's the same measurement as this arc out here. So if these two angles are the same measurement, then that means these two arcs here, arc AB and arc DE, are the same measurement. Now we've learned that when two minor arcs are congruent, their corresponding chords are congruent. So chord or segment AB is congruent to chord or segment DE. So if this segment is 8, then this segment here, x, has to be 8. So x equals 8. Okay, moving on to number 9. This is exactly a spitting image of the last problem, identical. If this angle right here is congruent to this angle here, then follow the central angle out, follow the angle out to here and to here. That means arc DE and arc AB have to be the same. Okay, and let me show you why. Watch carefully, please. Remember, if this angle here is the same as this angle here, then that means their arcs have to be the same. So arc DE gets 1 mark, arc AB gets 1 mark, and then again, students, what have we learned? When two arcs are congruent, then their chords, their corresponding chords, are congruent. So you have chord AB and chord DE. And that means chord AB is congruent to chord DE, so x equals 7. So x has to equal 7. Okay, moving on to number 10. Now watch carefully. If you'll look in your books, you'll see you have a chord here that has 1 mark and a chord here that has 1 mark. So you have two chords that are congruent. Now remember, when you have two congruent chords, then their arcs, their minor arcs, are congruent. So that means curved line here, arc AB, arc DE, they're congruent. Now think about that. If this arc here is the same as this arc here, don't forget that whatever an arc is, its central angle is the same thing. So let's pretend this is 20 degrees. I'm just making that up. That means this angle, well, we know it's 35 degrees already. So let's pretend this arc right here is 35 degrees. Well, if this arc is 35 degrees, that means this arc is 35 degrees. And if this arc is 35 degrees, that means this central angle right here is 35 degrees, and this central angle here is 35 degrees. Okay, so these two angles here are congruent. They're the same, okay? And if you got to back that up and watch it again, do that, okay? So what I can say is this angle here, which is x plus 6, equals this angle here, which is 35. Now bring the 6 over and make it a negative 6, and you're left with 29. Okay, moving on to number 11, solving for x. Now guys, think this through. Students, think this through. Notice I have an angle here that's 90 degrees. That means I have an angle here that's 90. Those are central angles. So that means arc AB has a measurement of 90 degrees. And that means arc DB has a measurement of what? 90 degrees. Do you not see what I just proved? I just showed you that this arc right here, AB, is congruent to this arc here, DB. Now what did we learn? If two arcs are congruent, then their corresponding chords are congruent. So this chord here has to be congruent to this chord here. So I'm going to simply write x plus 7 equals 3x plus 1. Now bring the 3x over and make it a negative 3x. And of course this 3x is gone. Bring the 7 over and make it a negative 7, and this 7 is gone. Bring down your equal sign. 1x minus 3x is negative 2x. 1 minus 7 is negative 6. Divide both sides by negative 2, and negative 6 divided by negative 2 is 3. And so your answer is 3. Not too difficult. All right, number 12. Now the directions for 12 state, name any congruent arcs, chords, or angles. Okay, let's be very, very careful. Be careful here. Do I have a chord right here? Yes, you do. Do you have a chord right here? Yes, you do. Are those two chords congruent? Yes, you have a mark here and a mark here. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the arc that's formed by chord BC and the arc that's formed by chord BA are congruent arcs. Remember what we learned, guys. We learned that whenever two chords are congruent, then their corresponding minor arcs are congruent. So what we learned is arc AB is congruent to arc CB. Okay? All right, moving on. And of course I didn't really state the theorem, but I did say it to you. If two chords are congruent, their corresponding minor arcs are congruent. All right, now look please at number 13. Do you see how this red arc is 90? Sure you do. Do you see how this red arc here is 90? Well, sure. So we know for sure, I'm going to put a mark, that arc, I'm going to put a mark here, arc AB and arc CD are congruent. So we learned a theorem that stated this: when two arcs are congruent, then their corresponding chords are congruent. So I know that segment AB is congruent to segment CD. There we go. Okay, moving on to number 14. Same instruction still. Now, let's be really careful. I think we can name more than just one set of congruencies here. Do you see how this chord here is marked congruent to this chord here? Okay, well, here's a theorem that we learned. Are you ready? Whenever two chords are congruent, then their minor arcs are also congruent. So arc AB is congruent to arc CD. So I'm going to write that off to the side. Arc AB is congruent to arc CD. But hold it. Now think about it. Let's just make up a number. Let's say that arc AB is, I don't know, 90 degrees. And let's say that arc CD is 90 degrees. That means the central angle, here's where I'll follow along. Here's where the arcs end, right? There's the end of the arc. Now with another color pen, I'm going to follow the end point down to the center of the circle, follow the end point down to the center of the circle. There is an angle, a central angle that makes up that arc. So if the arc's 90, then we know this is 90. Now do the same thing. That's a pretty bad 90, isn't it? Let's do the same thing over here. Here's the end points of your arc. Now follow your arc down to the center, follow your end point down to the center. If this arc is 90, which by the way, I don't know if it's 90, but just follow my reasoning here. If this arc is 90, what does this angle have to be? 90. So I don't care what these two angles are, they're congruent. So there's another set of congruencies. That's not what I meant to do. Here's another set of congruencies that I have. This angle here is congruent to this angle here. So how would you say this angle? You would say angle AQB. So angle AQB is congruent to angle CQD. And we are moving on. Number 17, the directions state to find the measure of the red segment or arc. Find the measure, okay? Well, let's see what we have here. Excuse me. It looks like what we have, okay, I see now what they're saying. This will be interesting. Let's go ahead and cross the answer off so we're not confused, okay? All right, now first of all, do notice something, please, students. Notice something. Do you notice how BD has 2 marks here and then 1 mark here? And notice how EC has the same thing, 2 marks here and 1 mark here. So let's go ahead and state this right now. These two chords are congruent, okay? Let's not miss that. Chord BD, this whole chord here, is congruent to chord EC. Now, what did we learn? Listen to me, students. What did we learn about when two chords are congruent? Their minor arcs are congruent. So I'm gonna mark them for you. Do you see this chord right here? You see that? Well, here's the endpoints. So let's go ahead and highlight the arc. The arc for that chord would go from here all the way to here. I did it in green for you, okay? Now, because I'm just so creative, let's go ahead and switch colors. Now, do you see this chord EC? Do you see that chord? Okay, let's highlight the arc for chord EC. Well, the arc would start here and kind of overlap the green and go like this. So students, it's so obvious. If from B to E is 110 and from here to here is 60, then from D to C it also has to be 110. It has to be. But how do I know that? Well, I'll show you. This whole green arc is 170. 170, yeah. From B to E is 110 and from E to D is 170. So this whole green arc, BD, is 170. Now, this whole blue arc from C to E also has to be 170. Remember, when two chords are congruent, their corresponding arcs are congruent. So if arc BD is 170, arc CE has to be 170. So if this whole arc from here all the way over to here is 170 and this much here is 60, then this has to be 110 because 110 plus 60 is 170. Now, I just showed you that from here to here is 60 and from here to here is 110. Now look at what they want you to solve. They want you to find the entire red arc from here all the way to here. Well, that's 60 plus 110. That would be 170. That's a pretty tough problem. That was a good thinking problem. Okay, number 18. Find the value of x. Well, let's see what we can do. Okay, first of all, right off the bat, I noticed this. I noticed that this chord here is congruent to this chord here. Do you see that? And what did we learn? We learned that when two chords are congruent, their corresponding arcs are congruent. So arc BA is congruent to arc ED. So I can set those two arcs equal. 2x minus 110 equals x plus 30. Bring this x over and it becomes a negative x. Cross it off. Bring your 110 over and it becomes a positive 110. Cross this off. Bring your equal sign down. 2x minus 1x is x. 30 plus 110 is 140. Okay? Now, let's see, where did we make a mistake here? 2x. Oh, I copied the problem wrong. Well, I apologize, guys. I don't want to mess that up. I'm sorry about that. It's 2x minus 10. I was like, where am I getting that? Where's my mistake? Okay, sorry. 2x minus 10 equals x plus 30. Okay, bring your x over and it becomes a negative x. Bring your negative 10 over and it becomes a positive 10. Bring your equal sign down. 2x minus x is x. 30 plus 10 is 40. And there's your answer. X equals 40. One more and we're finally finished. Number 20. Okay, now please watch my reasoning. Do you see how this chord here is congruent to this chord here? Okay, what did we learn? When a chord is congruent to a chord, then the corresponding arcs are congruent. So arc AB is congruent to arc DE. Now, watch this carefully, please. Watch how I do this. So we know that this arc here, I'm going to put 2 marks. Arc AB is congruent to arc DE. Now watch. Here's the end of your arc. Here's the end of your arc. Take that end point and go down to the center. Take the end point and go down to the center. And this angle right here is your central angle. Now come over here. Here's the end point of your arc. Here's the end point of your arc. Go right down to the center. And I'm going to change color so it's not confusing. Go right down to the center and go right down from the end point to the center. This is your central angle here. This is your central angle here. They're congruent. If the arcs are congruent, then their central angles have to be congruent. So I can definitely say that 4x, which is one of your angles, equals x plus 45 degrees. Now bring your x over, and when you bring it over, it becomes a negative x. Go ahead and cross off your x. Negative 1x. 4x minus 1x is 3x. Bring down your 45. 3x equals 45. Now divide both sides by 3, and x equals 15. Okay, so there we go. I hope that's a help to you. I hope this homework help video has been a help to you. Call or email if you have any questions.